Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Couple of things. First of all, I'm sorry I wasn't with the nerds this week, but I had to record the audiobook version of my new book, which is coming out on September 10th. It's called Who Could Ever Love You? Very excited about it. And we scheduled this, I don't know, 3 months ago, maybe. Who knew? So I have decided I am never scheduling anything again until this election is over because my goodness. Um, so that won't happen. That won't happen again. Um, yeah. So I wanted to start with a piece that I wrote on my Substack this afternoon. It's called "The Good in Us." If you guys want to check it out. Actually, I think there's some overlap between people who subscribe to that and people who subscribe here, and I think you guys are a good fit. So, head on over there if you haven't done so already. And I was just thinking about today's show, tonight's show, and I have decided that on Sunday nights, I'm just going to do Q&As with you because so much is happening, and I think once in a while it's nice to kind of take a beat, process, assess, and look forward. Just us. Um, so I was trying to think how to. I was trying to organize my thoughts around what happened this week because it was another in a what seems like a very long line of crazy weeks that we've had since the debate. Which I actually checked. I checked that date as well. The debate in Atlanta happened in the Pleistocene era. So that was a long time ago. And since then, just let's think about this and put your feelings and my feelings of, oh my goodness, how do we stay sane throughout all of this? How to put those feelings in context and how to make you feel okay about them. Because after the debate, I think it was 2 weeks. First of all, immediately after the debate, the media did an all-out assault on President Biden, who has been the best president of my lifetime, and one lousy debate did not deserve the kind of universal condemnation, calling for him to step down. I mean, it was insane. While Donald, of course, is out there being a fascist. Just the abdication of journalistic responsibility from the moderators on down has just been quite something to witness. So as we're dealing with that, and then of course we have Democrats and Democratic donors also piling on. So it's beginning to feel very precarious, and it was very stressful. Next thing you know, there's a shooting at one of Donald's rallies. 2 weeks later, 2 weeks after the debate, there's a shooting at a rally. One person was murdered protecting his family from the gunman's bullets. Donald's ear was grazed by something we don't know what. And it was a dark moment in our current political insanity. Political violence is unacceptable. Of course, like all gun violence, it seems to also to be very American. Despite that, Donald and the Republicans decided to go on with the debate, which was 2 days late. Not the debate, sorry. The Republican convention, which was 2 days later. 2 days later. So that was, I think, the 15th the convention started. Donald's very, very long, very rambling, very delusional speech, I guess, if you want to call it that, was full of disinformation and authoritarianism and just violence and cruelty. It was not coherent, and it also ended a convention in which domestic abusers, racists, and misogynists were allowed to take the stage and were given actually prominent speaking roles. It was like NASCAR, WWE, and I don't know, what's the most other misogynistic thing you can think of? Like had a baby, and it was the Republican convention. Maybe the next day, again, amid all of these all of these calls for him to pull out of the race, we're getting louder and we're becoming more prominent in the Democratic Party, making making some of us feel completely terrified, um, demoralized, and deeply worried about what was going to happen in this country. President Biden was diagnosed with COVID. So uh, we realized, I mean, as if we needed reminding, that the corporate media had no interest in doing his job because in the ensuing days, we knew more about President Biden's COVID diagnosis and his symptoms than we knew about the shooting of a presidential candidate. Okay. And then, and this is the thing I could not remember this morning. A week ago, at about 2:30 in the afternoon Eastern time, President Biden announced on Twitter that he was no longer running for a second term, and he endorsed as his successor Vice President Kamala Harris. That was a week ago. So the reason I couldn't figure that out is because I thought that was 3 weeks ago. I had to ask somebody. I mean, I guess I could have Googled it, but anyway, I decided to ask a human being. And, because if I had seen the data, like, on the internet, I'm not entirely sure I would have believed it. So, the reason it feels like it was 2 to 3 weeks ago isn't just because of everything that led up to that, but everything that's happened since. Vice President Harris announces that she's running. She raises $80 million in one 24-hour period from over 880,000 individual small dollar donors. The Democratic coalition coalesces behind her, in support of her. State delegates pledge their delegates to her. Anybody who could reasonably challenge her at an open convention through their support behind her, I'm talking people like Governor Josh Stein of Pennsylvania, Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, um, Andy Beshear of Kentucky, Gavin Newsom of California, anybody who was a reasonable, serious politician who has the clout and name recognition to challenge her, supported her instead. So, like, in an instant, all of our fears of an open convention in which Democrats just sort of beat each other to a pulp evaporate. And suddenly, this sort of miraculous thing happened. We felt energized. We felt hopeful. Some of us also felt a little guilty, honestly, because I was behind President Biden 100%. I never wavered in that. I think he was treated. I continue to think that he was treated abysmally. A lot of people owe him an apology. He deserved a second term. However, there was too much against him. And the sad thing is, because American politics is such a mess and we do such a bad job of educating the electorate, it didn't matter. His record didn't matter. And we've seen that even before this. We've seen people saying they were better off 4 years ago. Okay. They give credit to Donald for things the Biden administration has accomplished, right? So on top of that, we had a corporate media that was, just for reasons that we're going to have to find out, just to get completely against him. Plus, again, the intra-party fighting. And I don't think that given his age and given the fact that his age has become an issue, And it was an issue for a very specific reason. It's not because he's so much older than Donald. He's not. He's he's in many ways, well, probably always fitter than Donald, but he's quieter. He looks older because he doesn't wear makeup and he doesn't bleach or dye his hair. He's he's a lifelong lisp, so he doesn't speak fluently. He never has, but he also speaks more softly now. Donald is loud in his delusions, disinformation, and fascism. So apparently, all the American people want is somebody who's energetic, regardless of the ways in which, or the what they're in service to, what that energy is in service to. So I just don't think there was any way, since his record clearly didn't matter, which is, I don't know, stunning. President Biden saw the writing on the wall and he made what, in the context of everything that had been going on, was the right decision. And then the second thing he did right was endorse his vice president. And the third thing he did right, probably in conjunction with and in alliance with a very small number of people in the Democratic Party who have a lot of power. This is what I prefer to think. It may have just been kismet or what have you. I think they planned all of this, and that just gives me joy. What also gives me joy is that we now have a candidate who's fully 20 years younger than the man who is now the oldest candidate to run for the presidency in American history. We have a woman who was a prosecutor for many, many years and the Attorney General of California for, I think, 8 years, who has no compunction about going right at the bully. She refers to him as a felon and a criminal, and he is one, and she's going to prosecute the case against him in a way I just don't. I'm sorry, I said lisp. I meant stutter. So thank you, Kathleen. I appreciate that. So the Republican Party's entire strategy had to be jettisoned. And then suddenly Donald and the Republicans are having buyer's remorse because they picked as their vice presidential candidate a guy who is so weird and, I don't know, like creepy. Plus all the other things he is. He's a misogynist, he's a racist, he's all these other things. That they now want to return him. Also this week, Donald has started giving rallies again in which he is going full-blown fascist. So yeah, this week has been a year. So again, thank you for being here. I really like doing these with you, and let me start pulling up some questions. Some of these come from my Substack subscribers, so thank all of you for doing that. And I'll pull some from the thread as well if it doesn't go too fast, because you guys are awesome commenters. Okay, so let's start with let's start with some of the things that came out of Donald's rallies. Lorraine F said regarding Tom Cotton saying you won't have to vote again was a joke. Okay, let me set this one up. Donald said he was at some kind of Christian fundamentalist gathering, and he said, "My Christians, I'm a Christian too." Well, no, he's actually not a Christian. Which, by the way, I have no problem with. The problem I have is that he lies about it and then uses people's faith against them and against the rest of us. That I have a problem with. He said, essentially, I need you to vote for me now. If you vote for me now and I get back in, you won't have to vote again because I will have fixed everything. So Tom Cotton, yet another insurrectionist senator, was asked about this, and he said it was a joke, even though anybody paying attention knows that Donald doesn't tell jokes. Robert Costa asked Lindsey Graham, in fact, played the whole clip for Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham also laughed it off as a joke and was allowed to go off on some tangent about how Democrats are destroying America. Donald is just telling everybody he wants to save them and restore everything and be the one to hand things off to the next generation. And there was no follow-up at all. It's just, thank you, Senator Graham, for lying to my face. Of course, Robert Costa didn't say that last part. That was me. But that's where we are. It's bad enough that Donald gets away with this stuff, but then, or they don't cover it properly, but then they actually ask elected officials, Republican officials about it, and they're like, he was just kidding. No. No. This is how autocrats and future dictators soften the ground when these foot soldiers go out there and do their bidding and lie for them. So God from the God Pod, which I highly recommend to everybody. God also has a Substack, along with Jesus and Moses and a few other familiar people from both Old and New Testaments. Also commented saying the media is lionizing Donald and telling us what he really meant in regards to don't worry, you won't have to vote anymore in 4 years because we'll have fixed it. What do I think he really meant by fixed? Well, I mean, the problem is it seems pretty self-evident to me what he meant. And if we had reporters doing their jobs, everybody seeing stories about this would also know what he means, what Donald means to do. And hey God, what Donald means to do. Oh, by the way, I owe the fictional being of an email. Anyway, and when the dust sort of starts clearing, well, I mean, it probably never will it? So we're just gonna have to barrel through and do this anyway. The nerds and I are going to do a few specials about the Republicans' fascist manifesto, which is called Project 2025, and in it, it's very clear what the plan is. And by the way, Donald keeps trying to distance himself from it and pretending he doesn't know what it means and what it is and what's in it. This is a lie. He knows exactly what it is. And it means to turn the United States civil service into an army of loyalists who pledge their loyalty not to the Constitution or the United States, but to Donald. And if they get the majorities, probably they would only need a majority in one of the two houses. They're going to make sure that we never have an election again. That's what Donald means. He means that I'll fix it so that I never have to leave the White House and you won't have to vote, because even when, well, Donald doesn't think this because he's a nihilist and he thinks nothing exists, can exist beyond him. So that gets tricky. But he clearly, or his sycophants and enablers clearly have in mind just setting up a dynasty. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody he's related to, and wow, that would be bad. But it will be somebody who's appointed, not elected. There will never be a free and fair election in this country again. And that seems to me like that should be front page news, and that should be in the A block of any news show that is serious about informing the American people. I don't know, man. I am at the point now where I literally don't know what Donald could do anymore to get the media to pay attention, except, I don't know, act old. I mean, it's like it's completely crazy. Okay, from Nancy B. Do I think as Kamala names his crimes, the mainstream, or as we like to say, corporate media will become more focused on Donald's status as a felon? I don't know, because again, I'm not. They know about his crimes. It's not like they're a secret. Donald was convicted of 34 felonies. Before that, he was adjudicated by a jury of his peers to be a rapist. He was found to have defamed the woman. He was judged to have sexually assaulted to the tune of, I don't know, like $93 million. He was found to have committed fraud to the tune of $450 million penalty. The media knows all that. They know about January 6th. They know about the documents case in Florida, regardless of how the Supreme Court and his personal pocket judge, Aileen Cannon, are trying to screw it all up for the rest of us. Not one media outlet has ever called on Donald to step down while he was in the Oval Office. Not one, as far as I'm aware, except maybe the Boston Globe a long time ago. Oh, I'm sorry. There was one paper recently, I think in North Carolina, but forgive me, I don't know exactly. Now, not the New York Times, not the Washington Post, not one of them has ever said that Donald should drop out of the race. Okay, that's reasonable. What will happen, however, is that anybody paying attention to Kamala Harris, and apparently there are tens and tens and tens of millions of us, will hear about it, will get to know more about it, and that is a very, very good thing. Okay, from Carl A. Another thing bothering me is that Donald's pick, Louis DeJoy, is still United States Post Office postmaster. Why hasn't he been replaced? Sorry, United States Postal Service postmaster. Why hasn't he been replaced? Have people forgotten the mail sorters that went missing prior to the 2020 election? No, I haven't forgotten. It is a mystery to me while Louis DeJoy is still allowed. I mean, maybe there's a technical reason, but I would like to remind President Biden that he's a king now, thanks to this illegitimate, corrupt supermajority on the Supreme Court. So please do something about this. I know Biden just appointed former Congresswoman Val Demings to the board. I don't know if that helps. Like, I still don't know if we have the numbers. But yeah, we should not have somebody that corrupt and that with that many conflicts of interest running our postal service. It's one of the many, many questions I have about things that haven't been done in the last 4 years. Like, right off the top of my head, why weren't there hearings about how children of immigrants were treated and the immigrants themselves were treated? They were kidnapped. They were put in detainment camps. They were separated from their families and put in detainment camps. No hearings about that. No hearings about how, because of his willfully malignant mishandling of COVID, in excess of 400,000 Americans died needlessly. No hearing. No, nothing. No investigation. What about the $2 billion Jared Kushner, former senior advisor to Donald in the White House, got from the Saudi government and specifically Mohammed bin Salman? No investigations into that? Yeah. So I guess if they're not going to investigate that kind of stuff, maybe they just don't have the bandwidth to deal with Louis DeJoy. Although I wish they would. Okay, so many people have asked about the Veep stakes. And I have to say, like, usually this is a very predictable, boring exercise. And just to get this very clear, it's always like the VP pick is always a DEI hire, right? It's if you're I mean not it's not always clear what the reasoning is, but it's usually because the person's from a swing state, or like in the olden days when things weren't so polarized, it was so like Lyndon Johnson, for example, was from Texas and he could bring Texas into the fold, even though it trended Republican. Um, it could be because Hillary Clinton, for example, needed a very, very boring, moderate white man to be her VP. And I think it's pretty clear because we continue to be this horribly misogynistic, racist country that Vice President Harris is going to have to pick somebody who's a man and is white, which, you know, and by the way, for those who like Pete Buttigieg, I don't think a gay man is going to fly either because we're also really homophobic. So, that having been said, I am drinking, I don't know, San Pellegrino in a can for those of you who are interested. I'm very thirsty. I don't know why. It's been extraordinarily humid. There's tons of moisture in the air, but I still find myself very thirsty. Um, from what I heard recently, the front runners are Josh Stein from Pennsylvania, although he's Jewish, and that might be a little bit too diverse for some people. Again, ridiculous. Um, and Tim Waltz from, I believe, Minnesota or Wisconsin. Sorry, guys. There's just so much information to keep. Tim Waltz is from a state that starts with an M that is not Michigan. So how's that? Um, and maybe Mark Kelly from Arizona. So, they all have pluses and minuses. I think Andy Bashir's problem, even though he's an awesome governor, uh, is that he's an awesome governor in a very, very red state. And I think we need to keep it that way. He's also quite young and doesn't have as much experience as other people. Josh Stein, another excellent governor from a state that we actually not just can get, but need, Pennsylvania. He has one problem, and it's that he used government funds to bail out one of his aides. Why do I keep saying Josh Stein? It's Josh Shapiro. I'm sorry. From what I understand, he one of his aides, or one person in his cabinet or in his administration, was accused of sexual harassment, and he used campaign funds or some funds that weren't personal funds to get involved in a way that is not it's not a good look, basically. The reason I'm not saying more is because I don't know the specifics, so I don't want to get in trouble. But from what I understand, he doesn't come with a clean slate. I know most politicians don't, but in a year in which we are running against not just an accused, but an adjudicated sexual assaulter, I think that we want to I think we need to be very careful here and make sure that we get it right, because we're Democrats and we always have to get it right, while the Republicans can go ahead and be incompetent fascists. That's the world we're living in. Um, so I think that Tim Walz is rising up in the on the list of front runners, but Mark Kelly is also definitely in the running. Again, though, I don't know if it's too risky because he's a senator in Arizona and there is an open Senate seat right now. Because what's her name? One became an independent and then two decided not to run. Kirsten Sinema. So anyway, I'm happy with any of them. I assume that whomever they pick will have been thoroughly vetted. Oh yeah, Roy Cooper from North Carolina. I don't know. He's term limited, so he's the governor of North Carolina. I don't know why. But what I will say is that as far as I'm concerned, it needs to be a Democrat. I am very tired of, especially, these former Republicans or still Republicans, but never Donald people who think that we should always pick a Republican when Democrats are struggling or when Democrats are winning. Like the solution is, always pick a Republican. Why? I've never heard a Republican be told to pick a Democrat. It's just absurd. We are riding a high here, and we have a chance to put into office a woman who has been an integral part of an administration that has accomplished extraordinary things. And I think we'll continue President Biden's record, but may even do a better job because I think she will feel wholly unburdened by President Biden's sort of sense of allegiance to institutions that quite frankly don't exist anymore. You know? Um, it just unfortunately. I don't think I have a favorite pick because I just don't know enough about what's at play here, like what everybody brings to the table or what people's potential downsides are. Again, though, I just have to say I would be happy with any of them. Um, I think again, it's extremely unfortunate that another woman is off the table. I mean, I heard Gretchen Whitmer doesn't want the job. That's fine, but I also think that even if she did, she wouldn't be under serious consideration because I just don't think this country is going to put two women in office, which is just very sad. And it's a sad commentary on where we still are in the 21st century. But I guess we take our progress where we can get it. Some of them are a little bit too moderate for my taste, but that doesn't really matter. So is President Biden, and he's become the most progressive president probably in history. I know a lot of people like Pete Buttigieg. I'm not so much of. I mean, I think he's great at what he does, and he's very good on Fox, and he's a very good communicator and all that stuff. But he's very young and has very little experience. And I just don't see that happening. Even if it weren't for all the homophobia, which should obviously not be a reason not to nominate him. But I think it's more an age experience thing, and I think that's another reason why somebody like Tim Walz, somebody like Mark Kelly might be more front runners because even though they're not much older than Vice President Harris, they are, they're not in their 40s. Okay, so oh who asked this? Katie W. And actually a lot of people had this question. Well, yes, somebody pointed out Donald doesn't have experience either, but he's a Republican. Republicans don't have to do anything and they get a pass. Yes, because not only is he the oldest candidate in history, he is the least experienced, and he's still the least experienced because he didn't do the job for 4 years. He just killed a lot of people and tried to destroy us. I mean, I guess that might count as experience, maybe. Okay, so do I think Donald will replace Vance as VP, perhaps with Nikki Haley? Can he? Well, second question first. Can he? Again, Republicans can do whatever they want. Even though Vance is the official nominee, the Republican Party will do whatever Donald tells them to do, especially since his um, nepotistic daughter-in-law is in charge of the RNC. Speaking of incompetence. So yeah, they'll do whatever he tells them to do. Now, should he? I mean, he should, because Vance is a nightmare. I mean, the guy is just he's terrible. He's the worst, second least experienced candidate. I mean, at least he was a senator for 60 months, but he has no experience. He's got very sketchy ties to, billionaires and crypto dude bros. And again, he's just deeply, deeply weird. I mean, the fact that he hates a lot of people and is racist and misogynist totally works for the Republicans. That's not the problem. It's that he's just kind of gross. And then of course there are people like Nick Fuentes who find him problematic because he had the audacity to marry a woman who's not white. Like, that's the level of hatred we're dealing with over there. And clearly, when you are kind of knocked off your game to the extent that Donald has one, and it certainly isn't golf, by the fact that, the Democratic Party sort of imploded and then came back together in a way that made the story about your having been almost assassinated a thing of the distant, distant past, and the new candidate erased all of your gains over the old one. The last thing in the world you need are headlines about your VP pick that suggest he had intercourse with a couch, or that he did internet searches for Donald. I said Donald. Dolphin pornography, whatever. Like, the fact that I know that that's a thing now is just wrong. And that's all JD Vance's fault. Plus, of course, the infinitely more problematic rhetoric about how the Democrats are just miserable, lonely, single, childless cat ladies who want the rest of us to be lonely and miserable and childless, I guess. And that, what's his other talking? Oh, yes, that people without children shouldn't have the same rights. Their vote shouldn't count as much as people with children. Like, that's sort of terrifying. So he's just been bad right out of the gate, like starting with his acceptance speech, and it's only gone downhill from there. So I can completely see that Donald would want to replace him. I just don't know, it's not going to be Nikki Haley. I don't think. Um because they probably see having two white guys on the ticket as an advantage. I don't know, but if he does it, he'll probably do it like right around the Democratic convention to try to steal some of the Democrats' thunder. But good luck with that, because nobody can steal our thunder, because our candidate is Kamala Harris, and we're very excited about that. Okay, I have a lot of questions about what happens if the Republicans lose in November, which I believe they will. I think Lauren said, from my perspective, not just as a niece, but as a psychologist, do you think it's safe to say if Donald loses, that January 6th will look like child's play? From John D., what is the Biden administration doing to prepare countermeasures to the planned violence and chaos of Donald supporters. We all know it's going to happen, and it's 99 days at most from starting. I hope there's a well thought out strategy, et cetera, et cetera. From David K. How far will the Republicans go to steal the election? Assuming Donald loses, another insurrection, a sudden police state. Okay, first of all, most importantly, if and when Donald loses on November 5th, or maybe we'll find out on the 7th or the 8th, just like last time. Might take a couple of days. President Harris, President Biden won't be President Harris for another 79 days. President Biden is still commander in chief. So, I mean, if we had, think about it this way, if we had been prepared for January 6th, 2021, what do you think would have happened? Forget about if we'd been prepared. If we had had somebody in the Oval Office who wanted to stop it, that's the real question. What do you think would have happened? It would have been quashed like that. So I absolutely believe that President Biden and the DOJ and the FBI and all of the agencies are listening to the chatter, and they're following the online activities of all of the major players, and they have a plan in place because they know. I mean, Donald is already claiming the election was stolen, just like he did in 2016 and just like he did in 2020. He's basically saying that if he doesn't win, it's rigged because he's a baby and a sore loser. Unfortunately, people still listen to him, but we also know that's what he does. And in the wake of 2020, we also know that there are a lot of people who not just take it seriously, but act on that information. The preparations will probably be like nothing else that has ever been done to secure the safety of the country in the wake of an election, all because Donald Trump is a sore loser. I mean, think about that. The fact that anybody votes for this man is quite beyond my comprehension. So I'm not saying we shouldn't be worried, but I think the violence will be random and not organized because it will be disrupted before it can be. So I'm still worried about stochastic terrorism, which Donald incites on an almost daily basis. But again, I'm not the only person who's aware of that. So hang in there. I think we're going to be okay. Okay, two related questions. Josie, since 50% of the country is under Donald's spell, how do we go about unifying our country to break the spell? How does this finally end? And Christine asks, is there any way to have a conversation with a so-called Trumper that they would actually listen and converse, or is that a reach? All right. The first most important thing that needs to happen is we need to win this election. We need President Kamala Harris. We need to take over the House by huge margins, and we need to increase our Senate majority. This last one in particular is going to be very difficult because the Democrats have a very bad map this election season. However, I think the chances of our holding on to our slim majority and actually increasing it are greater now with Vice President Harris as our nominee. So, in terms of, so that's the first thing that needs to happen. As for breaking the spell, the best thing that could happen is the Democrats stay in power forever. Not forever. But the Democrats keep fixing the country and making the country better. And that's our next job, right? Instead of fighting fascism all the time, let's make democracy better for everybody. Wouldn't that be nice? And I think over time, people are going to see that their lives are different. Also, some of the most toxic political figures in our history will eventually leave the stage, right? I mean, nobody is immortal. And I mean that figuratively as well as literally. Like, what is Donald going to do if he loses at the age of is he going to run again? I mean, is he going to set up I don't know, an alternative government at Mar-a-Lago? It's like, how does that play out? People, you know, this is interesting. I It's hard to tease this out because, again, there's been so much going on, and I cannot believe it was a week ago. But do you ever have that feeling like one person, for reasons that you can't begin to understand, like everybody likes that person or everybody supports that person, even though you find them mean and cruel and unkind and duplicitous and I don't know, degraded and depraved, all these other things. And then something changes, something shifts, and it's like a dam breaking. Here's a perfect example for those of you who, like I, watched the classic Christmas shows as a child. Okay. My absolute favorite was Santa Claus is Coming to Town. I know you're probably going to think I'm a total idiot, but bear with me. Which was narrated by the great, the legendary, I just totally forgot his name, Fred Astaire. In it, there's a town run by the Burgermeister Meisterburger, another tyrannical, moody guy who juts out his chin way too much. And he has an iron fist, and toys are illegal, and everybody's miserable, and everything is gray. And then eventually, Burl Ives played the snowman in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Mickey Rooney played Santa Claus in Santa Claus is Coming to Town. I know way too much about this stuff. Sorry. Anyway, eventually people kind of come to their senses and they're like, we don't need this Burgermeister anymore. We want to be free and we want our kids to have toys and we want to be happy. Right? So the dam breaks and the support dissipates. And I think what we're seeing happening on the right, especially with the pick of JD Vance, the stupidest, I can thank my cousin Donnie for this, the stupidest, least strategic pick ever made, is that they're sensing Donald's weakness. They're sensing the limits of his appeal, which I have to confess took him 5 decades longer than I thought it would, because I don't even think he has any. I really do think it is just, especially if he loses, because all he's done is lose. He's lost every single election, including 2016, by the way. I'm not going to go off on that tangent, but he did lose. So I just don't see this lasting for very long, especially now that we have this contrast between this just vibrant, I mean, think about the attacks on Vice President Harris. And don't get me wrong, they're going to get even more vicious. They're going to get more misogynistic. They're going to get more racist. They're going after her laugh. It's like my favorite thing about, not my favorite thing. It's one of my favorite things about her. And you know why? Because it reminded me just how little joy there is because of Donald and the Republicans after 8 years. How nice is it? How heartening, how, I don't know, it's a beautiful thing to see somebody embracing joy, somebody laughing in a way that's sincere and real. In contrast to the guy who, one, doesn't laugh. Think about this. Think about this. Imagine never in your life having laughed so hard you started crying. or having laughed so hard that you like couldn't stand up anymore. That is a gift. That is a gift of humanity. Imagine not having that. The only time Donald laughs, and it's not really laughing, it's like it's not that big, laugh that like takes over your whole body, right? It's sneering. It's more a sneer. It's always at somebody else's expense. He only laughs at somebody else's misfortune. He only laughs to be cruel to somebody. Who wants that? I'm so sick of it. And she has reminded us in the span of one short week. Yes, it's mocking. It's mocking. So, I just think people are going to start seeing it. And it's not that Republicans, especially the Tom Cottons and the Ted Cruzes, obviously they're going to continue backing Donald until they just see it's hopeless. And no, Donald never. No, my grandparents did not have any pets for their children growing up. In fact, it was something my dad was, was unhappy about. So when my dad finally lived on his own, when my parents got married, they had dogs, and then when they split up, we had cats, and my dad was very into reptiles. So he loved snakes, and we had a tortoise named Tomato and an iguana named Izzy. So yeah, he was really into pets. Not so much the furry kind, but anyway, so another reason I think that we're on the winning side of this. And the other thing, how do we talk to other people that, the people who are still supporting him? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's a conversation to be had that convinces them. However, what I would say, two things I would say. You guys want people like me either to be killed or to have no rights. I just want you to have health care and childcare and, a system that helps you be old with decency. Okay, so that's one thing I would say. Another thing I would say is, if Republicans get into office, you're going to take away the rights of a lot of people. But if a Democrat does, you won't lose any rights at all. Why is that fair? How is that fair? Like, why do I have to subscribe to your beliefs? You know? And I mean, again, I don't think you're going to convince them, but it's always worth planting the seed, right? This is a great comment. This is from MJ. And I think this is very representative of how a lot of us have been feeling. I feel as though I've been in an old car wash with the scrubbers and flailing things and blown out the door to dry, sprawled on the driveway. Yes. Or one of those machines that polishes river stones. Just like the tumbler. Oh man. Okay, from Barbara B. She had a couple of questions. Will I wake up to find there's this dreamlike quality? Will I wake up to find Donald in the White House again? What and when will Justice Merchan rule on Donald's motion to vacate his conviction on grounds of immunity? Do you think JD needs therapy for his unresolved issues? Okay, let's be really simple about they all need therapy. All of them over there need therapy. Not one of them is going to get it, sadly. I do not believe you will wake up and find Donald in the White House again unless it happens in a dream, in which case I cannot make any guarantees. I don't know what's going to happen with Justice Merchan. What will happen, I believe that the hearing, I think it's a hearing now. It was supposed to be a sentencing on July 11th because of the Supreme Court's just egregious ruling that was postponed, but it still won't be a sentencing. It will be a hearing to determine if there will be sentencing, 'cause that's where we are. Imagine being a juror on that case after all you went through being told by the Supreme Court, "Eh, fuck you. Your civic duty means nothing to us. Doesn't matter that you found him guilty on 34 counts. We're gonna protect him." I mean, that's just grotesque, and that's the Supreme Court. Or as I need to refer to them constantly, the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority on the Supreme Court. So I don't know. I mean, what will happen when that hearing occurs is it will remind me of just how enraged I am about what the Supreme Court did do. Let's see. From Deb, how can we hold media accountable when they normalize Donald and his egregious behavior and report as though it's comparable to Kamala, Joe, or any rational politician or human's behavior? Mm, stop watching. Honestly, I mean, I think the future is an independent media, um, kind of like what we're doing here, Mary Trump Media. Um, we're bringing new content all the time, new perspectives, but also the Mueller She Wrote, slash Daily Beans, Midas Touch guys. There are a lot of people doing this, and I hope that it's going to change the way people get their news, because I don't know that people are getting news from their usual, from the places I grew up watching news. Like, I just don't think they're doing that anymore. I don't It's hard to take them seriously when they do. The both sidesing and the whataboutism have been deeply, deeply destructive, because, like, think about it. You have somebody who's a convicted felon on 34 counts, and he's got, let me subtract, something like another 40 indictments against him, and Biden was the one being told to step down. I mean, okay, fine, but that's not journalism, and that is not the way to get people, to help people understand what's really going on and what's at risk. Um, from Ali Kell, how do I think Donald is going to react when he loses to a black woman? I don't know, but I cannot wait to see it. I think we're gonna have to have a watch party for that one. So a couple of non-news items to end on. I see a lot of you are watching the Olympics. And I confess, like, I have some issues. Like, I think the IOC, kind of along with FIFA, is one of the most corrupt organizations out there. However, that has nothing to do with the sport and with the athletes. So, I don't watch the Olympics the way I did when I was a kid. Like, it was just, I mean, I think I watched every minute of coverage when I was young. But it's just amazing to see Simone Biles. Like, what an extraordinary woman she is. What an extraordinary athlete she is. It's great to see her back and healthy and not caring what anybody else thinks. Um, I've been watching surfing, which is something I had no interest in, but I'm finding it really cool. It's taking place in French Polynesia, so how bad could it be? Um, Tennis, of course, even though it's sort of just like watching tennis, but, I'm always going to watch tennis. So yeah, it's really, it's a nice break. It's nice to see, and archery, because I love archery. Yeah, and I've been like, I even checked out basketball today. America beat Serbia. I know, shocking. It's really wonderful to see these extremely talented and dedicated people who are so dedicated to their sport. get to perform on such a large stage, and the sportsmanship and the camaraderie among a lot of these athletes is quite something. So yeah, so I hope you're enjoying it as well. And just the last thing, Margaret G, because I'm so proud and excited about this. Pointed out that Amy Mann has written a blurb for my upcoming book, which again is called Who Could Ever Love You. And she just wondered how it came about and what music I'm listening to. Sadly, quick aside, I don't listen to music. I kind of do it in waves, and I haven't been listening to music. I miss the days when you put an album on and listen to the whole thing out loud, like not with headphones on. So I really miss that. I'm actually thinking at some point of getting I don't know if I'm gonna get a turntable, but something that I can play music out loud, like through speakers. Because I don't know. I never used to be able to live without listen to music like every day. So it's a little disturbing that I haven't been. Um, but yeah, I was fortunate enough to meet Amy at a gathering a couple of years ago, and I've been listening to her music since Till Tuesday's first album came out in the, I don't know, early mid 80s. So I've always admired her. She's one of those musicians who gets better. Her last two albums have been extraordinary. Her album Mental Illness like saved my life a few years ago, and I'm actually not kidding. So, I've always admired her. She always seemed like a really cool, down to earth person. And, that's how you want the people whose work you admire to be. So it was really just gratifying to find out that, guess what? She actually is those things. She's really, I mean, obviously she's really smart, but she's very kind and deep and exactly what you would want somebody you admire to be. So um I needed somebody to write a blurb, and I'm not even sure why I thought of her, to tell you the truth, because it was so unlike me to ask. I'm not at all comfortable. Yes, Amy and her band were on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and she hates playing Vampire Towns. Sorry. I'm showing my real nerd side tonight. I apologize. From Burgermeister to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Anyway, it's very unlike me to ask for that kind of favor. But I was extraordinarily grateful to her, and the blurb is so moving that I'm thinking of actually like having wallpaper made out of it. I'm kidding, but it's pretty amazing. Anyway, I think that's it for tonight. I went a little long, but I wanted to make sure I got a lot of your questions and just caught you up on a couple of things. So, so grateful to you all as always. You're why I'm here. So the comments are amazing. You're all amazing. So thank you. Just to let's see, tomorrow's Monday. Oh yeah. I'm starting every weekday at 7:00 in the evening Eastern time. I'm starting a daily kind of recap of whatever happened in the news that day. So look for that tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday, I will be back with the nerds at noon Eastern. Oh, and of course, sorry, I'm having trouble remembering what day it is. Jesus. Tomorrow morning and every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern, we have Morning Gen, which is really taking off. It's such a great show. It's such a great way to start the day. So check in with that, and our whole lineup is getting better all the time. So please give all the other shows a listen. I promise you it's worth the time. And we will keep going. And because of you, we're going to keep growing. So please press the subscribe button. If you haven't already, it's free, doesn't cost anything. It just means you're going to be alerted every time there's a new show. Click like, click share with as many people as you think would be interested in this. Check out my my Substack newsletter, The Good in Us, and I think that's it. So thanks, guys, so much. Jen will see you tomorrow morning. I will see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern time. In the meantime, please stay safe and be kind. Take it easy. Bye.